Hello guys, and welcome to my two-part ring menu construction kit tutorial. In the first part we will be building a menu together, a 2D menu, and in the second part we will turn it into a fully functional 3D widget. So let's begin. We will be rebuilding a menu from my demo map. It's the number input. You can hover over the digits here, and when you click them they will be written down into a separate widget in the lower right corner here. And the widget can be confirmed or closed by hitting the center button here. All right. So to start that off, let's create a new project. So here we are in the new project dialog. And just to use a different template than the one that has been used for the examples in the actual ring menu project, I'll choose the third person. Let's call that ring menu 2 demo. All right, ring menu construction kit imported. As we can see here, we have everything we need. And for the sake of this demo, I will be working inside the third person template blueprints folder. So the first thing that we need to do is to create the actual ring menu and the other files, widget files that we'll need. Let's call this one my ring menu. When I open this up, what I need to do is the following. I need to delete the canvas panel, and then I go to Graph, Class Settings, and I choose the ring menu base menu as a parent class. So if we now go back to the designer, we can see that the ring menu has been set as a parent. So next thing that we need to do is we need to create a second widget. We call this my button. Let's call it my ring button to make it clearer that is actually part of the ring menu. Again, we delete the canvas. We go to Graph, Class Settings, and this time we'll set the base button as parent widget. All right, next thing that we need to do is to define a place where the ring menu is set up and from where you will interact with it. And in our example, let's use the third person character. You might as well decide to use your player controller, for example. That's all fine. As we can see here, there's a lot of epic content already in place, but we'll be creating our logic below. We'll use the begin play node to set up our ring menu and save it into a variable. So create widget. We'll select my ring menu. Get a reference to our player controller here for the ring menu to know that it's owned by the player. And then we just save it to a variable. Let's just say this is ring menu UI. And this is my variable in which I'll store the menu. So to actually open the menu, let's use the, let's say we'll use the right mouse button. And if the right mouse button is clicked, and we say show ring menu. Please note that we are using the menu specific function that is called show, and please do not use the add to viewport, which would also be possible for regular widgets, but in this case there's a lot more logic going on, so please use this one. Okay, let's try that. So let's see what happens. As we can see, the menu opens, but I can still, I have nothing in it and I can still move around. So there's a lot to be done. Obviously, we have no mouse cursor and so on and so forth. By the way, in case you get this error here, it does not support focus. That's easy to fix. Just go ahead into your ring menu, and here you go to the ring menu itself, and you search for focus, and then you say yes, this is focusable, and this should suppress the error. Okay, So maybe let's tackle the fact that the character is still moving in the background. Let's tackle that one first. To block the character from receiving any input while the menu is open, we use the input mode functions that are provided by the engine. And we say, as long as the menu is open, we set the input mode to UI only. Again, we need a reference to our player controller. And we also need to tell the engine which widget to focus during that time. We also want the input mode to reverse back to the player as soon as the menu is closed. And to do that, we need to give the menu, or we need to ask the menu to give us a sign as soon as it's closed. For that, we use one of the event dispatchers, which the menu provides for us. So let's say we assign an event, or like a function call, to onHide menu. So as soon as the menu hides or is hidden, we can apply some logic here. And for this example, we apply the input mode game only. Get the reference to our player controller. All right, so that what that means here, or what happens here now, is that as soon as we open the menu via the right mouse button, we'll block the input for the player, and as soon as the menu is closed, this function here fires, which gives the controls back. So now we can move forward with the menu content actually. So let's see what we have here. If we go to the class defaults, we can see that there's a lot going on here on the right side, and you can set everything up here in the details. So to get a better overview, let's just collapse all these categories here and move from top to bottom and see what we actually need. The first thing that we would probably address are the general options. So let's unfold that. We can see that we can set up some buttons here. We could also do that at runtime, but for this example, we know that we want to create the dial plate number menu, and this doesn't change at any point during the game. So we can just set up the buttons right here. We have 10 of them, 0 to 9. And I'll just quickly fill these with the appropriate content. Let's just say it gets an ID, which is identical to the text that we see, but it doesn't get a name because we don't need it. It doesn't get a description because we don't need it. And we don't need the label either. From here on, I'll just fast forward because that's boring. All right, so now we've set up the numbers that should appear inside our menu, and now we can decide which button to use for that, or which button widget to use for that. We've already created one, so let's switch to the ring menu button. I think that's enough for now. We'll have a closer look later, but let's go to the general controls here and set the control type to point and click, because otherwise we won't be able to see the cursor. And let's already set the background as well. For the background, I have one prepared already, but you might as well just use your own. That's a little small, so let's scale it up by 1.6. No screen blur for us because we want to see the background. Okay, and now we have the ring cursor. Where is it? The ring cursor, here we go. The ring cursor will be our flashing light bulb. So for that, we have a cursor. I have a cursor prepared. You might also want to use your own, of course, which is called ring cursor bulb. And we also scale that down up a little bit, let's say to maybe 2.3. And we also need a relative offset, because if we have it at 1, it will appear on our buttons. If we set it to 0, it will appear at the center of the menu. So we want it to appear a little bit outside of the buttons and of the menu, because it needs to overlay the other light bulbs. So let's go with 1.5. Actually 1.6 probably, it's better. Okay, so at that point, maybe let's try. So we have our menu, that's good. We have our cursor. We can also see the ring cursor going. But as we can see, it's set off a little bit. It's a little bit too far on the outside, and it's maybe also a tiny little bit too small. But and also the buttons are not yet set up, but we'll do that in a second. Let's go ahead and say we'll set the size to 2.35 and maybe the offset to 1.5. Also, the ring cursor needs to snap to the buttons because otherwise the light bulb will just slide along the ring. That's not what we want. That looks way better now. Now it actually looks like the light bulbs would be lighting up as soon as we hover over one of the buttons. All right, now let's set up the ring button. For the ring button, we will make a few tiny adjustments. So we go ahead and set the text font to the Broadway font, and the size I think we can leave that at 70 probably. But we need to remove the labels because we don't want them to show up on hover. And also the hover effect here. This is not something that we want for this particular menu. What we actually want, or the effect that we want to achieve, is the outline that should be light up only when the button is hovered. So we could go ahead and set it right here in the text font. We have the outline settings right here, but if we would set it here, it would appear all the time. We would see the outline all the time. This is not exactly what we want. So what we need to do is to expand the functionality of the menu a little bit here to set up our own logic. And to do that, we can override functions, and these functions are called onHovered custom. That's the first one, and the second one is the unhovered custom. These two will fire as soon as the button is hovered or unhovered, and you can set up your own functionality here and extend what the menu offers to realize your own ideas. And in our case, we need the button text. So let's get the button text, and from here we'll get the font. We'll split that up. And we want to set the font to something different. Here as well, we get the font info that we need to split up. So what are we doing here? When the button is hovered, we want the outline to appear. So as soon as we hover that button, the family stays the same, the material stays the same, but the outline settings actually are updated, and we'll create a new outline setting for that. The typeface stays the same, font size and spacing as well. So what we want here is an outline of size, let's say size 3. And we take some nice, maybe light orangey color here. Let's try it with something like this. And now that means what happens is as soon as you hover, the outline will appear while the rest of the font is unchanged. We need the same thing for unhovered. So on unhovered, we can go ahead and copy that one, what we see here, or the logic here. Let's just move it down, connect it, and say as soon as you unhover, the outline size goes down to 0 and the outline disappears. So let's see how that looks. I'll open up the menu, and as you can see, the font is set correctly, and when I hover it, the outline is shown, and as soon as I unhover it, the outline goes away, and that's perfect actually. So what we still need to do is we need to remove the default picture that shows up when there's no other picture set up, and that is easy to do. We just go to the center resource here and clear that one. So now the image should be gone. Yeah, perfect, because we need that space in the middle to set up our center button. And this is what we will be doing right now. So the center button needs a slightly different layout, but it's really close to our already existing ring button. So we'll just go ahead and duplicate this one and say, let's just call it my center button. So this one needs just some tiny adjustments, text size needs to go down a little bit. Okay, and now we can go into our ring menu and look for the center button category here, which is here. Yes, we want to use that center button. We'll give it a separate widget, and we can set up another button info for that. So this time the ID could be confirm, because when you click it, you will confirm your whatever you have entered into your number field. We don't need a name, but the text will be confirm. No description for us. All right, and the button size, let's just say 200. Let's see if that is the look and feel that we're aiming for. Oh, that doesn't look too bad. Perfect. Okay, so our basic menu is now finished. Next thing would be to create a separate widget in which we can enter the numbers that we are selecting in the ring menu. For this reason, we'll create another widget and call it number input UI. This time it's a completely independent widget with no ties to the ring menu. Let's go ahead and use a border, which we'll set up in the lower right side of the screen. Set up the anchors to the lower right and set up the brush to input field, which is a brush that I have created for this specific purpose. The image size is 398 to 76. So we'll use these values. Here we go. Okay. Compile and save. And now what we want is that the numbers that you enter in the ring menu should appear here in this widget. So we need a text. This text block needs to be set up. Let's give it a vertical alignment to the center, and also could do with some padding, actually to the left. Here we go. And of course, the text itself will also have our Broadway font, and it could be black, I guess. Let's set it to black. All right, also could be a little bigger. 35 doesn't seem too bad. Okay, so now we have the text, like the text object, but we need to bind it to a variable because otherwise it won't show the right content. So we'll use a string for that, call it number input, and bind this to our text, number input. So this one needs to show up as well as soon as we're starting the game. At least for this example, we go ahead and set it in the begin play of our third person character. So we will create another widget. We'll select our number input UI, get player controller. And this one can be added directly to the viewport right from the beginning. Compile and save, and let's quickly try that. That looks good, but it doesn't do anything as yet. We will change that now. So as soon as you click a number, we want this value to be entered into our new widget. So we need to tell the menu, please notify us as soon as the user clicks on an icon. So we'll use another event dispatcher for that and say assign on button activated. On button activated basically means, okay, as soon as you activate one of the buttons, we'll get a message. All right, so give it a little more space here. There we go. Okay. As soon as the button is activated, we have now access to the full button info. That's also a difference to the previous menu version, we can now choose to get either the ID or just the text from the button, and we can append this to our number input UI. But to be able to do that, we should save our newly created widget into a variable, which I forgot. So let's save that to number input UI. All right, and now we can say, as soon as the button is clicked, set our number input variable to a new value, and this new value should be the previous number input content plus the one that is coming in from the button. So what we need here is an append node. We'll have the previous content, and we will append the, let's just go with the text. That's fine. All right. So let's see if that works. Open the menu. We can see our number input here. And if I click the 3, for example, as we can see, it's been entered in the field in the lower right corner. Also, again, if I click the 9, it works. I could also click the confirm at the moment, but that's not really what we want, right? And we also don't want the menu to close because we want to be able to enter several numbers in succession. So let's quickly jump into our menu and go to the general options here and say we don't want it to close and confirm. So it stays open and we'll be able to enter several numbers in a row. What we also want is to close the menu when you click on confirm. So we could say, okay, if the ID of the button equals confirm, we will apply some different logic here. So if it's not confirm, that's totally fine with the logic that we have got. But in case it is confirm, we'll say hide our menu. So let's see how that works. Now we can select several numbers here, and as soon as we click on confirm, the menu is closing and we can go on with our game. So that's good. All right, so this is the menu that I wanted to build with you together. The 2D menu is finished now, and that concludes the first part of my tutorial. In the second part, we will take what we have created so far and will turn it into a fully functional 3D menu. So, hope to see you guys there, and thank you very much for watching.